Hey there, in this video we're going to do operations with different types of variable. So the first type of variable we're going to be working on is integer type. So integer is basically a whole number with no decimals, just whole numbers, right? So let's go ahead and create two variables, x and y. So x will be equal to 15 and y will be equal to 5. So now let us do some operation on this. First we will go ahead and do addition. So x plus y. Let's go ahead and run this by pressing shift and enter, and we got the output 20. Let's go ahead and subtract x from y from x. Now we get the output 10, and let's go ahead again and divide x by y, and we get the output 3. So basically 15 divided by 3. Let's go ahead and multiply x and y, and we get the output 75. So x and y are integers, numbers, and they are right now 15 and 5. And if we do operations on them, basically addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, we get outputs. Now x and y are counted as 15 and 5. So basically Python understands this as the value stored in this name. So these names are called variable names, and they're assigned with a equal sign. Now let us go ahead and work with a different type of variable. This time we're going to work with floating number or decimal number. So floating number is basically any number with decimal, and then there's two numbers, one on the right side and one on the left side. Meaning basically x and y, let's just reuse our values x and y. X now will be 95.5 and y will be now 9.5. Okay. Now let's go ahead and put this 90.5 for simplicity. So you can change the value of the variables at any time you want, and also you can change the type of variable just by assigning different value to it. Now we have the x and y to be 90 and 95, and they're of type floating number. Now let us go ahead and do some operations on them this time again. So let's go ahead and add this x, y. Make sure the case is right casing because Python is case sensitive. So let's go ahead and add these two, and we get x plus y. So 90.5 and 9.5 is equal to 100. Let us go ahead and subtract x minus y. So basically subtracting y from x, and get the output by pressing shift and enter, and we get 81. Let us go ahead and multiply this again. So we get the number 859.75, and let us go ahead and divide this. X divided by y, we get 9.5 and a huge decimal number. Because we don't have enough knowledge about function yet, I'm not going to introduce function to you, but as you can see, we could work with different types of variables, and we can change the value of the variable at any moment we want inside our project, and Python will understand the latest value you have assigned to it. Now let us go ahead and use a different types of variable. This time we're going to work with string. So string value, we're going to reuse our variables x and y. The variable name could be anything. Just for simplicity, I'm using the same variables. So let's go ahead and write two values. This time we're going to have hello and world, and we're going to go ahead and do some operations on them right now again. Let's go ahead and add to strings. So this time we're working with strings. The type is string. So the ruling for string is a little bit different. You don't do operations like number with strings, but you do few operations which are similar, like addition. So when you're adding x and y here, you're basically saying concatenate these two string, meaning add this two string to make it a single string. So I got hello world here. Now let us go ahead and subtract, and you'll see what happens. If I subtract x from y, because they don't have the same character, this doesn't make sense. Let's go ahead and run this, and it says there is a type error. So string type doesn't support negative. So you should not use subtraction for string, but you can use addition for concatenation. Okay, but you can use also multiplication here. Let's go ahead and multiply x by 5. Okay, and let's see what happens. So as you can see, hello was multiplied 5 times, and we basically have hello, 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 hello. And we can do same thing with string y. Let's go ahead and change the value to world. So now first we have to run this, and then we have to run this, and then let's run this by 10. So we got world 10 times. Okay, so you don't do multiplication like x times y, but you do how many times you want something. Let's say I want to have a letter O. Let's anything, could be O, or so I'll just say here Y and here A. So I'm just saying yeah. It's funny, but let's go ahead and run this again just to have a little understanding. So bunch of character can be printed just through multiplying the variable. So the variable x here has one string, which is, and one value, which is y, one character, and a. And you can do that. Sometime you will be working with a project which has something to do with printing multiple times of the same character, and you can use multiplication of string just like this to multiply a value. And to divide, we don't really use string division here. Let's go ahead and skip that, and let's move on to Boolean values. So now we have a type called Boolean, which is basically true and false, 0 and 1. Let's first do addition for Boolean. So when you're doing addition, you're basically doing math, right? And when you're doing math, you're basically adding numbers, and Boolean is true and false. So we also know that true and false has a different value for math. So we have 0 and 1. 1 is true and 0 is false. Let's go ahead and write two values, which is going to be x, which is going to be equal to true, and y, which is going to be equal to false. Make sure your first letter is capital, or else Python will not understand what is going on here. Let's go ahead and add these two Boolean values, and let's see what happens. So we got the output 1. Why is that? Why didn't we get true or something? Because when you're adding two Boolean values, this turns into 1. So this becomes 1 because it's true, and false is always 0, so this becomes 0. And when you add 1 and 0, you get the output 1. Let's go ahead and subtract true and false. So let's go ahead and subtract true to false. So since this is a mathematical operation, it's going to subtract 1 minus 0, which is going to give us 1 as well. Let's go ahead and multiply this right now again. So because we are doing multiplication, which is a mathematical operation, we're going to get something like 1 times 0, and which is going to be 0. And division works the same. So we cannot divide 1 by 0 because we cannot divide a number by 0, which is going to give us an undefined value. Let's just try it and see what happens. So we expect an undefined value, therefore an error, and we got an error saying that division by 0 is not possible by Python. There's other ways to do it, but for now let's just stick to simplicity with operations with different types of variable. I hope you understood a little bit from this. So you can store these values with a name, another variable name, and this should be fine. Let's go ahead and store this with the value sum, and now we don't get any output, right? So how do we get an output? We just basically print this. So let's print this value or variable sum, which has the value x plus y, and we got the same output 20. And let's have this variable named difference, diff or difference. Okay, and now let us print this again by using the print statement and then put diff inside, and let's go ahead and run this, and we get the 10. And same thing we could do for division by storing the value inside a variable and then printing this variable. This is a really good practice because you will not be always using script and line by line interpreting coding. Sometimes you'll be working with a big project and you need to store your value into a variable. So always use the good practice by using comments like that to explain your code, and then store your value and use print statements. Even though you're working in Jupyter Notebook, you should get the habit of storing your value and then printing it when you need to have an output. I hope you understood operations with different types of variables, and we'll be learning more about operations with different types of variables as we go along and learn more about Python. And thank you. This is it for this video.